Good morning everyone. Today we can discuss about the categories of malware. First one is a trapdoor and it is otherwise known as backdoor. Actually it is a secret entry point into a program, or it is a bypassing technique. It allows those who know access bypassing usual security procedures, and they are commonly used by the developers. Very hard to block in operating system. It requires good software development and update. Also a threat when left in a production programs, allowing exploited by attackers. So trapdoor or backdoor, it is a category of, it is a type of malware. It is actually bypassing the usual security procedures like authentications, and they are commonly used by the developers, and it requires good software development and update, and it is very hard to block in operating system. It's a secret entry point into a program. Okay, next one, that is logic bomb, which is another category. Also it's one of the oldest type of malicious software or malignant software. Actually the logic bomb is a software code which is attached to a legitimate program. Always it is activated when certain conditions met, like based on a particular date or time or particular user. If it is activated when a particular user is using that program, or it is activated on a particular date or time, like that. Okay, that is actually logic bomb. When triggered, that means on that particular day or that particular user, it will be triggered and it will be typically damage the system. That is actually logic bomb. It can modify, delete files, disks, etc. So one of the oldest type of malicious or malignant software, which is a code which is embedded to a legitimate program. It will be activated when a specific condition met, like on particular date or time, presence or absence of some file, and particular series of keystrokes, etc. When triggered, it typically damages the system, like it modifies the original file, or it deletes the files and disks, etc. Okay. And third one is a Trojan Host. It's a program that appears to have one function but actually perform another. It is actually a program which contains one function but actually perform another function. Modern Trojan horses are there. It resembles a program that a user wishes to run, usually that is superficially attractive, like game, software update, all are something like a Trojan horse. When run performs some additional tasks, it allows attacker to directly gain access they do not have directly. That means an unauthorized access can be provided to the attacker. And it is often used to propagate a virus, worm, or install a backdoor. Okay, they are mainly used for propagating a virus or worm, or for installing a backdoor. Or it can simply destroy your data. It's also a type of malware. It's a program which contains some function but it performs another function. Okay, that is Trojan horse. Next one, zombie. A program which secretly takes over another networked computer. Then it uses it to indirectly launch attacks, often used to launch some DDoS, that is distributed denial of services, which actually deny some services. Okay, that is mainly happen in distributed system and exploits non-flows in the network system. That is distributed. Actually, the zombie is working in, mainly it works in a distributed networked computer. It often used to launch the DDoS attacks. Okay. It's also a type of malware. Next, we can study what is a virus and worm. Worms are the oldest one. And first well-known worm was known as the Morris worm, and it is used a BSD Unix flow to propagate itself. And virus requires host. There is a need of host to activate a virus, like a Word document, etc. And both can spread through the email. That is, virus and worm can spread through the mail. Melissa virus uses address book of the infected computers. One of the oldest viruses is Melissa virus, and one of the oldest or the first well-known worm is Morris worm. But because it is less beneficial to the creators, this oldest form of malware is dying out. Okay, so you can study viruses and worms in detail. One is virus. That is, virus is a piece of code that inserts itself into a host, including operating system, to propagate. It cannot run independently. It needs a dependency, or it needs a host to activate. A computer virus is a program that can replicate itself. It can propagate and it can replicate itself and spread from one computer to another. It can also spread into programs into other computers by several ways, like on execution, like a search for valid target files, and usually find in executable files, often only infect uninfected files. Insert a copy into targeted files. When the target is executed, virus starts running, as well as virus can propagate. Also, it can replicate itself. Only spread when contaminated files are moved from one machine to machine. So if a machine contains a file which is affected by the viruses, and that file, if we move from that computer to another computer, the virus also propagated. Okay, so it can make infection like direct infection as there, fast infection, slow infection, sparse infection, and RAM resident infection, and it can also affect videos, etc. Okay, direct infection means virus can infect files every time a user opens a specified infected program, document, or file. And for the fast infection, when a virus infects any file and that is accessed by the program that is infected. Okay, and it is slow infection means when the virus infects any new or modified program, file, or document. Sparse infection means it's a process of randomly infecting files, or disks, etc. on the computer. RAM resident infection means when the infection buries itself in your computer's random access memory. Okay, there are many types of infection: direct infection, fast infection, slow infection, sparse infection, and RAM resident infection. Also, it can affect the video, like hippie virus plus cascade. It's a combination of two viruses can affect the video itself. Hippie virus and cascade viruses can affect the video. And next one is what is the lifetime of a virus. We have 4 phases of virus lifetime. One is dormant phase, next one is propagation phase, and the third one is triggering phase, and next is execution phase. So in the dormant phase, it is actually an ideal condition, that is no activity for the virus. A virus program has managed to access the target user's computer or software, but during this stage, the virus does not take any action. It is not in an active state. Okay. That is actually dormant phase. But in the case of propagation phase means the virus starts propagating, that is multiplying or replicating itself. It places a copy of itself into the other programs or into certain system areas on the disk, etc. That is actually the propagation phase. Actually, infected program will now contain a clone of the virus or a copy of the virus, which will itself enter into a propagation phase. So, in dormant phase, it is actually in ideal state, that is, it takes no action. The virus will eventually be activated by the trigger, which states which event will execute the virus, such as date, the presence of another program, etc. After the dormant phase, it will enter into a propagation phase, that is multiplying and replicating itself. It can place a copy of the itself into the other program. That means the infected program files contain the clone or copy of the virus, which can itself enter into a propagation phase. Okay, so these are the first two phases of a lifetime of virus. And in the third, it is a triggering phase. A document virus moves into this phase when it is activated. Now it will perform the function for which it was intended. The triggering phase can be caused by a variety of system events, including a count of the number of times that this copy of the virus has made copies of itself. That is actually the running time of the virus. That means it performs its original function here. That is the triggering phase. And in the execution phase, here the triggering phase, actually it starts to function for which it was intended. But in the execution phase, the actual work is happening in the where the payload will be released. Actually, the payload is the malware part of the, or the actions of malware, which is the actual attacking part of the virus. It will be released, and it can be destructive, such as deleting the files, crashing the system, corrupting the files, etc. Okay, that is execution phase. So we have four phases of a virus. One is dormant phase, that is in an ideal case. Then it can propagate, it can make its copy, and in the triggering, it can be triggered, or it will now perform the function for which it was intended. That means it is activated. But in the execution phase, the payload will be released and it will destruct the files, or it is deleting the files, crashing the system, or corrupting the files, etc. Okay, and this is an example of virus structure. Okay, so these are all about the introduction of virus as well as its lifetime. Thank you.